Welcome to the Trent Center for Aging and Society podcast, where we will explore the topic of precarity, aging, and risk in later life with two renowned experts in the field of gerontology and sociology. Joining us are Dr. Amanda Grenier, professor in the Factor in Montage Faculty of Social Work at the University of Toronto, where she holds the Norman and Honey Schipper Chair in Gerontological Social Work, and a senior scientist at the Rotman Research Institute at Baycrest Hospital. Also with us is Dr. Stephen Katz, Professor Emeritus of Sociology at Trent University, and a founding member of the Trent Center for Aging and Society. Both scholars have dedicated their careers to examining the challenges and opportunities faced by older adults in an ever-changing world, and they share a passion for addressing the inequalities and structural barriers that shape aging experiences. In this conversation, we look at key questions shaping their work. When asked about the importance of precarity in the research, Dr. Grenier reflected on her drive to uncover the root causes of risk and insecurity in older populations, highlighting how inequality disproportionately impacts aging individuals. Dr. Katz expanded on this, pointing to how environmental degradation and technological advancements are creating entirely new forms of precarity in later life. Motivated by a shared commitment to marginalized groups, Dr. Grenier emphasized the need to focus on societal structures rather than medicalized narratives, while Dr. Katz critiqued the abandonment of older adults by modern capitalist systems. Both underscored the necessity of fostering community responsibility and systemic change to better support aging populations. As we concluded with insights for aspiring researchers, Dr. Grenier encouraged curiosity and theoretical rigor to address root causes and drive meaningful change. Dr. Katz championed interdisciplinarity and imagination, urging students to reflect on their own aging futures as a guide for their work. Tune in to hear their thoughtful reflections on how we can create a more equitable society for people of all ages. How important is the concept of precarity to your research?
In my research, I started to see a lot of kind of inequality, disadvantage among older people, and I wanted to understand a little bit better what that risk and insecurity was about, both in the ways we respond to older people and the way that they may perceive, live, or experience their own situations.
Precarity is a new set of conditions. We have precarity in terms of environmental stresses now, climate change and instabilities, and then they get translated into people's lives on an everyday basis. I think we have new conditions in the world. We need new concepts that take aboard new experiences.
What motivated you to pursue this area of research?
I've always been interested in understanding the experiences of older people who have been excluded or marginalized in some way. In gerontology, there were these spaces where we weren't talking about exclusion, marginalization, disadvantage, and so for me that really has been something that I wanted to continuously pursue, so that we weren't always only talking about medicalized issues of aging, but we were talking about what it was like for someone to live in, as Stephen was saying, these kind of structures that are creating disadvantage.
I've always been interested in the ways in which peoples have not only been divided, but abandoned and often isolated. Late capitalism has produced an incredible array of wastelands and gray economies and people who live in the seams of survivability. And I think precarity starts to get at those areas in ways that other concepts fail us. And it's not just the usual divisions between positive and negative or dependence and independence. Even if they're privileged, even if they are independent, there is still a world around them that in a way treats aging as, or is indifferent to the destabilizing of later life.
What needs to change in order to improve the lives of aging people?
One of the things that I'm talking about tonight in terms of key changes is that we start to recognize some of the issues and challenges that exist. And so we don't just take for granted welfare state systems or something will protect older people, that there will be public supports available. That assumption that older people will be taken care of has kind of led to abandonment in some way. So I think the first thing is to start having these conversations like we're doing tonight, to start recognizing the inequalities that exist for older people. And then I think that third piece is to think about questioning some of the practices or some of the assumed responses or the non-response, and having some sort of public responsibility or commitment to change and better people's lives.
I think the ways that we have marginalized older people through concepts like vulnerability or frailty present us with a kind of exclusive space of living. And I think what precarity does, along with radical visions of vulnerability, for example, means that we are all living in precarious ways and are vulnerable and are fragile. And therefore it invites in a strong ethics of reciprocity, intergenerational care, state responsibilities and commitments that are truly inclusive, because we are not really divided between the precarious and the non-precarious. We are in this together as humans. Unfortunately, our governments have sought to govern or rule through difference. If we want something to change, I think this is one way to change it, to have a different vision of humanity and the relations between humanity and non-human life around us as well.
What knowledge or skills do you think benefit students interested in studying aging?
The piece that I always answer is about curiosity and kind of wanting to know more, then kind of using these theoretical frameworks or concepts like precarity, like exclusion, to try to go further, to figure out how do I understand and how do I explain it, and to also know the methods of how they might do that. So I think starting from a point of listening, being curious about something, and then really exploring that with this ultimate purpose of change. You know, as a critical gerontologist, that's one of the pieces. So we don't only kind of study something, we're studying it for the purpose of creating better conditions.
Oh, I like the idea of curiosity, and I think interdisciplinarity is crucial. I mean, if we go back to the first people who studied aging and gerontology, they were an incredibly imaginative bunch. They studied spirituality, they studied poetry, the humanities, they studied geography and sociology and psychology, of course, too. So my advice would be imaginative, be caring, be empathetic, and when you think about aging, think of yourself as aging. If you hold to that and are critically curious at the same time, you bring to aging studies strength and a wealth of possibilities. Studying aging is about what's possible, not just what is. And that means that people from various backgrounds share the same table and all bring something to it, which is a common set of problems, a common set of interests, and a critical curiosity about the possibilities.